The night of the storm. The night was bitter cold. The kind of cold that makes the air hurt when you breathe. Streetlights flickered, and a light drizzle turned the cracked pavement slick and shiny. In the shadows of an old city park, hidden behind a broken swing set, a barefoot girl shuffled forward. She looked no older than 12. Her tiny frame was hidden under a thin, oversized hoodie, and she was holding something. Two things. Two small bundles wrapped in ragged blankets. Babies. One of them whimpered. The other barely moved. Her name was Lyanna. She was just a child herself. But tonight, she wasn't thinking about her own pain. Her feet were raw. Her hands were numb. But all she cared about were her twin brothers, EMTT and Julian. Just a few months old, and already they had seen more suffering than most people saw in a lifetime. 2 days ago, Lyanna had been living in a house she no longer called home. After their mother died of cancer, their father, Ronan, changed. The pain turned him into someone else, a man full of rage, regret, and alcohol. The father who once tucked her into bed now threw bottles across the room. And last night, he crossed the line. He grabbed baby EMTT and screamed, "These brats ruined my life." His breath reeked of whiskey. His eyes were wild. Lyanna screamed louder than she ever had before. She grabbed EMTT, scooped up Julian, and ran like fire was behind her. She didn't stop, not when her legs gave out, not when the hunger became a dull ache in her chest, not even when the sky opened and the rain came. Now, at 3:23 a.m., she stood in the middle of the park, her back against a tree. She slid down, pulling her brothers close, whispering lullabies with trembling lips. And then, she passed out, just a few blocks away. Ethan Maddox, Billionaire tech CEO, was driving home from a late meeting. He wasn't a man who usually took side streets. But tonight, something pulled him in a different direction. He often said he trusted data more than instinct, but something in his gut told him to turn left. That's when he saw it, something strange near the park, a pile of what looked like trash bags. No, not bags. Movement, a child. He slammed the brakes. Ethan jumped out of his sleek black Tesla, his expensive shoes splashing into a puddle. As he got closer, his heart froze. A girl. 2 babies. One of the babies wasn't crying. That terrified him more than if both were screaming. Ethan dropped to his knees. The girl was pale, her lips blue, but her arms were still tightly wrapped around the twins, as if her last breath had been used to protect them. Without thinking, he scooped all 3 into his arms and ran back to the car. The babies were ice cold, and the girl's skin felt like paper. He hit the gas and called his wife, Isabel, on the car's Bluetooth. "Belle," he said, trying to keep calm, "I need your help. I found kids. A girl. 2 babies. I think they're in trouble." "What? Are you serious? How old?" "The girls may be 12. The babies, newborns." She passed out in the park. No shoes. She was holding them like they were her own. Isabel, a former nurse who now worked with children in crisis, didn't ask any more questions. She just said, "Bring them. Now." Maddox Mansion, just before sunrise. The Maddox estate sat on the edge of the city, a place of glass and steel and warmth. Isabel waited at the door with blankets, towels, and her heart in her throat. When she saw the girl's bruises, the baby's cold cheeks, she didn't cry, but she felt something break inside her. She took charge immediately. "Get them inside," she ordered. "Ethan, warm the nursery. I need boiled water, clean clothes, and baby formula. Go." Lyanna was laid gently on the guest bed. Isabel cleaned the blood from her feet and covered her with layers of warm blankets. The babies, now slowly warming, were given formula through tiny bottles. EMTT cried softly. Julian didn't even open his eyes. Isabel held her breath. Hours later, a whisper breaks the silence. Just as dawn lit the horizon, Lyanna's eyelids fluttered open. She shot up like a bolt of lightning. "Where are they?" she screamed, wild-eyed, ready to fight. "They're safe," Isabel said gently, pointing to the bassinet. "Your brothers." Lyanna nodded, her eyes wet. Her voice shook. "Are you calling the police?" Ethan walked in slowly, his voice calm. "Not yet. We want to hear your story first." And that's when the tears finally came. Lyanna began to speak, not all at once, but in pieces. The pain came out in jagged whispers. Her mother's illness, her father's cruelty, the night she ran, how she fed the twins with the last scoop of formula, how she sang to keep them calm when her voice barely worked, how every step felt like her last. She told them everything. And when she said, "I didn't run for me, I ran for them," Isabel hugged her tight and didn't let go. "You don't have to run anymore," she whispered. "Not ever again." Shadows at the gate. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Maddox mansion, spreading golden light across polished hardwood floors. The home was usually filled with silence this early, but not today. In the nursery, soft coos came from EMTT's crib. Julian, freshly fed, rested against Lyanna's chest as she rocked slowly in the corner chair. She hadn't slept. Not really. Every creak of the floorboard, every breeze rattling the window made her heart skip. She was safe now, or so everyone said. But how could she believe it when the man she feared most still haunted her dreams? Downstairs, Ethan was pacing the living room with a phone pressed to his ear. Isabel sat nearby with her laptop, typing rapidly. The atmosphere was calm, but under the surface, it was all business. Protective, fierce, determined business. "She's still a minor," Ethan said quietly to his lawyer on the phone. "We want emergency guardianship. Today. And file a restraining order. Her father can't get near her or those babies. I don't care how many hoops we have to jump through." He hung up and turned to Isabel. "Security upgrade." She nodded. "They're sending over a full team. Cameras, motion sensors, panic buttons in the nursery and her room. But it'll take a day to set up." Ethan clenched his jaw. A day is too long. He didn't say it out loud, but both of them were thinking the same thing. What if he finds them first? Upstairs, Lyanna was staring at a photo on the wall. It was a picture of Ethan and Isabel smiling with a group of children during a charity event. She noticed something strange about it, not the photo itself, but what it made her feel. Warmth, peace, belonging. She looked down at Julian sleeping in her arms, then at EMTT who was now gurgling in his crib, and whispered, "What if this could be our life now?" She didn't hear the soft knock at the door. "Hey," Ethan said gently as he entered. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "Can I come in?" She gave a slight shrug. Ethan took a seat across from her, not too close. He noticed how she kept her body between him and the babies. Protective. Always. "Ida," he began, clearing his throat. "I talked to someone. A judge. We're filing emergency papers so you don't have to go back to him." Lyanna looked down. "He'll come anyway. He always finds us." "Not this time," Ethan said. "This house has more eyes than a casino. If he even steps on the lawn, alarms will go off." Lyanna didn't smile. Instead, she asked, "Why are you doing all this? You don't even know me." Ethan leaned forward. "Because no child should ever have to do what you did. You didn't just protect your brothers. You saved them. And people who save others, they deserve to be saved too." Her eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears away. "People like me don't get happy endings." Ethan didn't answer. He just gently placed a small object in her hand and left the room. She looked down. It was a key, a small silver house key. It sparkled in her palm. Later that day, a new visitor. Isabel had invited someone over. Dr. Nora Benson, a pediatric specialist with experience handling trauma in children. She greeted Lyanna with warmth and brought stuffed toys for the babies. Lyanna didn't trust her at first, But when EMTT smiled up at the doctor during a quick checkup, she started to lower her guard. "They're underweight, but they're fighters," Nora said. "You've done an incredible job keeping them alive, Lyanna. But now it's your turn to be cared for too." Lyanna didn't answer, but a part of her wanted to believe. Isabel gave her a journal that afternoon. "No pressure to talk," she said, "but sometimes writing helps." Lyanna opened it in private and stared at the blank page. She didn't know where to begin. That evening, a buzz at the gate. Dinner was warm, calm. Isabel made soup and fresh bread. EMTT tried mashed carrots and spit them all over Ethan's shirt. They laughed. It felt unreal. Like a movie. Lyanna let herself smile. Until the intercom buzzed. The housekeeper answered first, expecting groceries or the electrician. But the voice that crackled through the speaker froze everyone in place. "Let me in. I know you have my kids." Ethan was the first to react. He strode to the monitor and pressed the screen. There he was, Ronan. Sweaty, disheveled. His eyes were wild. He swayed slightly on his feet, a cigarette in one hand. Lyanna stood at the top of the stairs, EMTT on her hip, frozen in fear. "That's him," she whispered. "He found us." Isabel stepped forward and took EMTT from her arms. "Go back upstairs," she whispered urgently. "Lock the door." Ethan tapped the mic. "You're on private property," he said coldly. "Leave now. You rich folks think you can steal my blood." Ronan spat. "They're mine. All of them. You'll see. I'll be back with the police. They're mine." "They're not property," Ethan replied. "They're people, and you've lost them the moment you laid a hand on them." Ronan's face twisted, but instead of rushing the gate, he backed away into a rusted pickup parked down the block. He revved the engine and disappeared into the dark. That night, the rain returns. The Maddox home felt like a fortress now. Locks were checked, windows bolted. Security guards stood outside in silent watch. But Lyanna couldn't sleep. At 2:17 a.m., she jolted awake. Her heart beat too fast. Something was wrong. She ran to the nursery. Julian's crib was empty. The window was open. No. Her scream shattered the silence. Ethan and Isabel were already running. "He took him," she sobbed. "Julian, he's gone." Ethan dashed to the control room. Security footage showed the nightmare unfolding in grainy black and white. 2:12 a.m., Ronan slipping through the fence. 2:14 a.m., disabling the backup generator. 2:16 a.m., creeping into the nursery. 2:17 a.m., taking Julian from his crib and vanishing through the back. He hadn't left the property. "He's still here," Ethan muttered, grabbing a flashlight. Lyanna followed barefoot into the rain. Her instincts screamed where to go. The garden shed. She flung the door open. There he was, Ronan, kneeling, cradling Julian, rocking back and forth. "She looks just like her mother," he muttered. "You can't take them from me. I won't be alone." "Put him down," Lyanna said, her voice steel. Ronan looked at her. His face was soaked, eyes sunken. "They don't love you. They'll throw you away too." Ethan appeared behind her. Not a chance. Ronan stood. "Come near me, I swear." Julian whimpered. That sound, the tiny cry of life, was enough. Ethan lunged. Lyanna dove. Julian was safe. Mud flew. The shed rattled with the struggle. But Ethan held Ronan down until the police stormed in. They took him away screaming. But Lyanna didn't hear the noise. She only heard her brother's soft breathing against her chest. The courtroom and the key. The dawn sky bled gold and lavender across the hills as the Maddox estate stood in still silence, its glass walls reflecting a home that had just survived a storm no one saw coming. Inside, the air was thick with exhaustion, but also peace, Lyanna sat on the back porch, wrapped in a knitted blanket, her legs curled under her. Julian slept in her arms, his soft breath brushing against her neck. EMTT lay curled against Isabel's shoulder nearby, gently snoring. Ethan stood close, arms crossed, watching them like a silent guardian. Ronan was gone. The police had taken him away, his wrists cuffed, his voice slurred, shouting words that made no sense. But it was over, at least for now. Or so they hoped. Lyanna looked up at Ethan, her voice quiet but sure. Is it really done? Ethan took a seat beside her, looking out at the morning sun. Not yet, but we're making sure it will be. The next 48 hours moved like lightning. Ethan's legal team sprang into action. Emergency hearings were scheduled. The surveillance footage was handed over to authorities. Isabel filed a protective order not just for Lyanna, but for the babies too. But what stunned even the seasoned family court judge was the full written statement Lyanna handed in, handwritten in careful, trembling letters. She had poured her soul into it. She wrote about her mother's love, about the songs she used to sing. She wrote about the day the house turned cold, about EMTT's tiny cry being drowned out by the sound of a slamming door, about the fear of silence, the fear of footsteps, the fear of breathing wrong. And she ended it with one powerful sentence. I am not asking for someone to rescue me. I already did that myself. I am asking for someone to protect my brothers, so they never have to feel what I did. The courtroom was silent when the judge finished reading. A heavy, respectful silence. The courtroom. It was the first time Lyanna had worn a dress in months. Isabel had taken her shopping, and she wore a simple blue dress and clean shoes. She didn't recognize herself in the mirror, not because she looked different, but because she looked safe. Ethan sat beside her in a dark suit. Isabel on the other side, holding Julian. EMTT rested in a baby wrap across Lyanna's chest. Ronan wasn't in the courtroom. The judge had ruled he was a danger, and he was held in custody pending charges. The room was filled with lawyers, social workers, reporters, but Lyanna didn't see any of them. She only saw the judge, a tall, silver-haired woman with kind but piercing eyes. You are requesting legal guardianship of Lyanna Rose Benton and her infant brothers, EMTT and Julian Benton. The judge asked, voice calm. We are, Ethan replied. My wife and I would also like to file for adoption, Your Honor. The judge looked at Lyanna. You're brave, more than most adults I've seen. But are you sure you want this? Lyanna took a breath. Her voice was steady. They gave me back my life. I want to give them my trust. The judge smiled softly. Then let's make this official. With the sound of a single gavel hit, everything changed. Back at the mansion, celebration and healing. They didn't throw a huge party. There were no reporters, no media. Just friends, close neighbors, the lawyer who had stayed up all night finalizing papers, and the security team who now felt like family. Balloons lined the living room, and a banner read, Welcome home, Lyanna, EMTT, and Julian Maddox. In the center of the room sat a framed photo, one Ethan had taken without anyone noticing. Lyanna sitting on the porch, holding her brothers close, with sunlight hitting her face. Beneath it, a small golden plaque read, Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear hand-me-down shoes and carry hope in their hearts. Lyanna stood in the center of the room, stunned. Is that me? Isabel laughed softly. That's you, sweetheart. The strongest person we've ever met. The bedroom that wasn't just temporary anymore. That night, Lyanna opened her door to find something new. Her name had been painted on the wall. Not her old name. Her new name. Lyanna Maddox. Her bed had a new comforter, soft lavender and gray, the color she had told Isabel she liked. There were photos on the wall. Her, Ethan, Isabel, EMTT, and Julian. But what caught her eye was the little box on her pillow. Inside was the key, the same one Ethan had given her before. but now it had a tag. To your forever home. She didn't cry. Not at first. But later, as the house grew quiet, and she lay between her brothers listening to their soft breaths, the tears came, not from pain, but from something deeper. From healing. Weeks later, a new beginning. Lyanna started school again. It wasn't easy. She didn't know how to talk to other kids at first. They didn't know her story, and she didn't want them to. But when her class wrote essays about courage, she surprised even herself. She stood in front of her classmates and read, "Courage isn't being strong. It's doing what you have to do even when you're scared. I used to think I was alone. But I was wrong. I just hadn't met my family yet." She didn't see her teachers wiping their eyes, or Isabel hugging ENTT tight at the back of the auditorium. She didn't see Ethan clapping the loudest. She just smiled. Epilogue. 1 year later. The Maddox family didn't look like any ordinary family. A billionaire, a nurse, a girl once homeless, twin boys who barely survived their first months of life. But when you saw them walking in the park, Lyanna holding both boys' hands while Isabel and Ethan followed with a stroller full of snacks, you didn't see the past. You saw love. That summer, a local newspaper ran a headline, "Abandoned No More," the story of a girl who rescued her brothers and found her forever family. Lyanna kept the article in a scrapbook she was building. On the final page, she glued a note Ethan once left on her bedroom door. "You didn't just survive, Lyanna. You rose. And we are proud to rise with you." Lyanna stood under the golden lights of the Maddox Estates hallway, staring at herself in the mirror. The girl looking back was different. Her cheeks were no longer hollow. The bruises were gone. Her hair was brushed, clean, tied with a soft lavender ribbon Isabel had given her. She wore a necklace now, a silver locket with a photo of her mother on one side and one of her brothers on the other. In the center, a tiny engraving. Loved, chosen, home. She looked down the hall. EMTT was on the carpet, babbling nonsense words to a stuffed elephant. Julian was wobbling unsteadily on his feet, trying to walk for the first time, his arms reaching toward Lyanna. She dropped to her knees and caught him with a laugh that surprised even her. He giggled, and she cried. But this time, it wasn't fear or sorrow. It was joy. Later that evening, one final test. After the adoption hearing, there were some final details to handle. Court documents, therapy meetings, even media requests. Lyanna was overwhelmed, but she handled it like she always had, quiet strength and fierce focus. Still, something inside her hadn't settled. Roman's final words still echoed. "They'll throw you away too." It was a poison she couldn't shake. That night, long after the house had gone quiet, Lyanna sat on the floor of her new room, holding the adoption papers in her lap. Her brothers were fast asleep. Ethan walked by, carrying a tray of warm tea and snacks. He paused at the door. "You all right?" he asked. Lyanna looked up. "Can I ask something? And you'll tell me the truth. Always." She hesitated, then said, "What if I mess up? What if one day you change your mind?" Ethan slowly walked in and set the tray down beside her. He sat cross-legged across from her like he was her age too. "Lyanna," he said softly, "I run billion-dollar companies. I've fired CEOs, closed entire divisions. But do you know what the hardest decision of my life was?" She shook her head. "Letting go of control, trusting someone with my heart. But you made that easy. You fought for your brothers when you had nothing. You didn't break, you protected. That's love. That's the kind of person we want in our family forever." Her lip trembled. "But what if I still feel broken sometimes?" He smiled. "Then we help each other heal. We don't need perfect. We need real." Lyanna threw her arms around him and hugged him tighter than she'd ever hugged anyone in her life. 6 months later, a new chapter. The seasons changed. Winter gave way to spring. The trees outside the Maddox home blossomed. Laughter echoed in the halls where once there was only fear and silence. Lyanna enrolled in a community art class. She found she loved painting. Her first piece was of a tiny figure carrying two babies through a storm, walking toward a faint light in the distance. She called it Found. EMTT learned to say sissy and no within the same week. Julian became obsessed with apples and would throw tantrums if anyone touched his toy bear. Isabel enrolled them in play school, and Lyanna helped pack their lunchboxes every morning. She wasn't their mother. She was something else. Their anchor, their hero, their heart. One final scene. The legacy. 1 year after that night in the park, Lyanna stood in the very same park, only now in new shoes, with a warm jacket, holding both her brother's hands. They walked slowly past the bench where she had once collapsed. A small bronze plaque had been placed there. It read, "In honor of the brave young girl who reminded us what love truly means. She came through the darkness, not to be saved, but to save others." Lyanna stared at it for a long time. Then she whispered, "Thank you, Mom. I kept my promise." Behind her, Ethan and Isabel waited patiently. They didn't rush her. They just stood, knowing this moment was sacred. When she finally turned, Lyanna took Julian into her arms and nodded. "I'm ready to go home."